The world's ecosystem was ruled by mechanical life forms called the Mechanites. Their insectoid minions, known as crawlers, were a prevalent scourge across the land, and life for people was a constant fight against their threat. But beyond the city, there lies a hidden village of humans known as the Celestial Forest. This village, which worshipped the gods of the stars, had a sacred staff used in their rites and customs that have been passed down through countless generations, creating a barrier that protected the village from threats with its power. The successor of the staff at the time was Ib, who had an older brother, Ningirsu, and together, the two of them spent their time with their childhood friend, the young boy Aram, and the small dragon whelp, Imduk. Aram and Ningirsu, seeking a means to reduce the burden of upholding the barrier by even just a little, spent day and night trying to beat back the crawlers. One day, Ib heard a strange and mysterious voice deep within the forest. Together with their worried friends, Ib headed to the source of the echoes. Ib, who slipped deep into the forest, saw what looked like a massive structure of sorts. Her friends caught up to her, and together they approached the structure, when suddenly the staff of Ib emitted a dazzling glow, the massive structure coming to life as if it responded to it. A small fairy, Lee, appeared before the band, who were startled by the fact that the structure was emitting the same kind of light as the staff.
You children are the world heroes. Please, help me gather the scattered light of this world and save it from the great darkness.
Wanting to protect humanity, they accepted the earnest wish of the fairy Lee, and thus, the children of the Celestial Forest decided to leave their home. The power granted from the World Chalice by Lee allowed them to overpower the crawlers, which, up to then, they had barely managed to hold off. But there were also 6 other world legacies scattered across the world with similar power. Upon hearing that, once gathered, the artifacts would grant them the power to defeat even the Mechanites, and the villagers finally felt hope. The party then traveled to the wetlands, where the next world legacy lay sleeping. What awaited them there, however, was a vast swarm of crawlers along with the X-crawlers that controlled them. The team divided their forces beneath the silent gaze of World Legacy World Armor, and though they found themselves slowly being pushed into a corner, they managed to silence a vast number of the insectoids with the aid of the clever Lee. The party finally arrived at the World Armor, having given their all and used their wits to their fullest. But then, the Mechanites, rulers of the realms of machines, suddenly appeared, glowing in the 7 colors of the rainbow. As Aram and the others were stunned by the turn of events, things went from bad to worse. The Mechanites ensnared Ib in a barrier that even her sacred staff couldn't break. Then, they disappeared into thin air with her, leaving Aram and the others behind. After Ib and her sacred staff were abducted, Lee told the party it would be dangerous to try to collect the other world legacies by themselves. After a long journey and much searching, they arrived at the ruins of a long-lost civilization that the Mechanites had made their stronghold. There, the world legacies, known as the World Lance and the World Shield, were already active. Ib had doubts to the idea that the Mechanites were the embodiment of great darkness, as they refused to harm her even after they kidnapped her and seized the sacred staff. But then, Aram and the others launched a surprise attack on the Mechanites. Aram and the others launched a fierce ambush attack, throwing everything they had into the fray. But the Mechanites, angered and enraged, finally combined as one into Mechanite Spectrum Supreme. In the midst of this back-and-forth battle, where even one wrong move could have spelt defeat, Ningirsu noticed a chance and gave a signal to Lee. It was the start of a solo operation that Lee had proposed. Ib was relieved to see Lee, as she managed to sneak into the ancient ruins by herself and locate where Ib was being held. But then, Ib asked Lee about the truth of the Mechanites and who they really were.
Maybe we shouldn't fight against the Mechanites,
Ib said. Lee slowly looked back at Ib and flashed a sadistic smile, dropping the adorable facade she had kept since they first met and took on a more terrifying visage. Lee revealed her true colors as she mentally took control of the body of Ib, causing the two to be reborn as Iblee. The Mechanites were aware that Lee had disappeared, but couldn't afford to deal with her due to being stuck in the midst of battle. The war between the Mechanites, who viewed Ningirsu as the strongest threat, and Aram, who grew stronger, continued. But then, a massive explosion occurred inside the ruins. A torrent of incredible power erupted from the World Chalice, greater than any seen before. And then, in the next moment, she suddenly appeared. It was none other than Ib. But the power that emanated from her, brimming with evil, was a telltale sign that she was no longer Ib. She smiled and told them that she was Lee, and that this body now belonged to her. Iblee released a wave of energy, forcibly canceling out the power of the World Chalice she granted to Aram and the others, and then she tried to take their lives as well. However, in a twist of fate, the Mech Knights chose to oppose her. The united form of Mech Knights was undone as they could no longer endure the power of Ibli. She extracted the cores from most of the Mech Knights by force and tried to seize the sacred staff sealed inside the core of Blue Sky. As the Mech Knights knew the sacred staff was actually the key that controlled the fate of the stars and the very planet itself, Blue Sky attempted to make Aram his heir in the darkest hour. Aram opened his heart to Mech Knight and inherited the power of the staff. Now in his hands, the key transformed into a pair of swords. Even though he inherited the key, the power of Aram became a pair of swords because it was an indirect succession granted to him by Mech Knight Blue Sky, rather than by the one true heir, Ib. When Ibli realized that Ib, sleeping deep within her, had the right of succession, she rushed to activate the World Lance before Aram. While Aram managed to tail her, he found himself struggling against the nightmares, mythical beasts created by Ibli. However, Ningirsu, aided by Imduk, managed to catch up with Aram and the monsters. Together, they struggled to help Aram as they had lost the power of the World Chalice in their previous fight as everyone rushed towards the World Lance. But in the blink of an eye, Ibli managed to activate the World Lance first, launching a terrifying and intense attack against the heroes. Ibli used the cores of the Mech Knights to create beasts from myth and legend, each inheriting the characteristic of its source Mech Knight. Ningirsu rushed to the side of Aram as his friends struggled to hold them off and managed to defeat Mermaid in a single deadly blow. He then made himself the target of the other nightmares, giving Aram a clear path ahead to chase after Ibli. Ibli picked up one of the swords to finish off Aram, who had been injured by the power of the World Lance, but the dragon whelp Imduk leapt in front of her out of nowhere. Before its endangered friend, Imduk manifested a portion of its power as God's vessel. Even though it was brief, it forced the spirit of Li to show itself, paralyzing her. That led the spirit of Ib to finally awaken from the dark depths of her own mind. Seeing the fallen Aram and the sword in her hand, Ib realized what was going on and made the sudden decision, turning the tip of the sword towards her own body, impaling herself. Faced with the arrogantly superior Ibli, Aram grew stronger, Mech Knight stood their ground, Ningirsu fought bravely, and Imduk awakened a hidden power. Ultimately, the ambitions of Ibli were shattered by deadly irregularities caused by a series of small glitches stacking on one on top of another. However, it was a nightmarish ending for Aram and his companions, the warriors of the World Chalice.